So, I'm sure we all know who Riyad Mahrez is. He's the player who was instrumental when Leicester won the league in 2015-16. Him along with, I would say, Morgan, Huth, Kante and Vardy were probably like the most important figures. Oh yeah, and Schmeichel. Most important figures when Leicester won the league that season. And it was actually a pretty crazy season when you really think about it. Because I remember Liverpool had that crazy game with Dortmund where they won 4-3, and then there was the Europa League final. Liverpool lost that, unfortunately, and then Man United won the FA Cup, and then very shortly after, Louis van Gaal was fired, and then Mourinho was announced. And then there was also Arsenal, who finished second despite only buying, I think, Petr Cech that summer. And it was just a crazy season throughout, but that's not what I'm going to be talking about today though. The main focus of this video is the current situation and really the conundrum Riyad Mahrez is facing at the current moment. Since that season when Leicester won the league, Mahrez has been trying to move away from Leicester for what feels like forever really. He first tried to move to Barcelona allegedly in the summer of 2016 when Barcelona were not sure whether Neymar was going to stay, and as the story goes, Mahrez threw up a tantrum because he thought Leicester were blocking his move, and they told him that once the correct bid would come, they would allow him to leave. Fast forward to the summer of 2017, and this time Roma apparently bid for him 3 times, and they wanted to get him to replace Mo Salah, but it didn't exactly pan out that way. And the reason why Mahrez allegedly threw a tantrum and was really annoyed was because they had blocked his move the summer earlier, and they told him if he gets an offer in the correct region, the correct amount, they will allow him to go. And it didn't work out that way because Roma didn't offer the amount that Leicester wanted. So Mahrez was pretty annoyed. And I could understand his annoyance because they had just come off a pretty poor season. I mean, no one expected them to win the league again because the way they won the league was quite incredible and maybe a once in a lifetime thing, but at the very least maybe they expected to qualify for the Europa League, but instead they finished 12th and they lost a lot of key players. They reached the quarterfinals of the Champions League, but besides that their season was pretty poor. And I could understand why Mahrez was thinking that he wants to leave now because he doesn't see any future for the club. But he stayed at Leicester because there wasn't much you could do. As far as contracts go, there's no way you can void your contract or be allowed to leave for free unless your club voids your contract in a very prolific way. Maybe like not paying you, or what's happened at Sporting Club in Portugal recently. The club president allegedly telling fans to go attack players. There's no way you can just make yourself not be an employee of a club anymore. So he had to just wait until the summer or the next transfer window to get an appropriate offer. What happened next was during the 2017-18 January transfer window, Man City supposedly came up with an offer on the last day of the season because they thought Leroy Sané was going to be out till the end of the season or a pretty large part of the season, and they wanted to get a replacement as soon as possible. So they bid for Mahrez and they presented their offer to Leicester, but once again, as the story goes, Leicester did not feel like their valuation was met and they declined once again. So this time Mahrez tried a different approach and he decided to go on a de facto strike. And during this quote-unquote strike, certain newspapers came up with reports that he refused to play for Leicester ever again, he would not come to training anymore, and some reports even went as far as to say that he had gone to Algeria and he was never coming back unless Leicester would agree a fee for him during the summer or something along those lines. Anyway, his agent basically said those were all lies and the media was just trying to frame him in a certain way. And I guess his agent was vindicated because by the end of the season, Mahrez had played again for Leicester, so it kind of made all of those rumors and reports kind of false. Whether he was injured for that entire period or whether he was ever injured at all, I don't really know. So it's now been 5 transfer windows in a row and he's still at Leicester. Now what? Basically, the problem that Mahrez is facing is that he's not good enough. Not that he's bad, but he's not he hasn't put enough of a reputation as a great player to warrant an expensive transfer fee from a team like Arsenal or Liverpool, in which the team pays over the odds just to get him, like Arsenal did with Aubameyang or Liverpool did with Van Dijk. So he's stuck in this position where if he plays well and his valuation goes up, the big clubs are less reluctant to buy him because Leicester's valuation of him goes up, and it's not parallel to the amount that the teams that are interested in him are willing to pay. And if he plays poorly, he can't exactly warrant a move to a big team because he doesn't have that reputation where the teams will just think to themselves, he's played well before, so he's just taking it easy, or he's not invested enough to give it his all and, really earn this move. So this is the tough position he finds himself in. I think part of his problem stems from the fact that prior to Leicester winning the Premier League, he didn't have 1 or 2 seasons where people were able to recognize him as one of those great players who just isn't at a big club and he's waiting for his big move. Like right now, you could say Wilfried Zaha is one of those players where if he has an incredible season next year, he'll definitely go to a bigger team. Instead, the problem that Riyad Mahrez faces is that it would appear that he peaked during the season Leicester won the league, and he's been degrading and decreasing in performance since the season Leicester won. Now, any person who actually watches Leicester or follows Mahrez's performance would tell you that that's not the case at all. He's actually been very good, and I think a good example of that is like the goal he assisted, against Manchester United when Leicester played United in December. Very good goal that he assisted for Vardy, and it shows that he hasn't really lost his touch at all. He's still a very great player, and I would personally have him at Liverpool. So what exactly can Mahrez do to solve his dilemma? I would say that at the current moment in time, there's only really 2 alternatives, and I don't know which one would be more successful or if either would be more successful, but these are the 2 options. The first one I would call the Coutinho method. Basically, in this method, you play the best you've ever played. You give in 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 performances every other week, and you hope that before long the team that you've been eyeing on or has been eyeing you will come in with a bid and just sweep you off your feet and take you to your desired destination. There is a reason why I called it the Coutinho method, because it obviously worked for him. Now he's at Barcelona and he's happy. He gets to play with his friend Suarez and the best player of all time, Messi. Good for him. But the way he went about this was quite interesting. After Liverpool refused to do any business whatsoever with Barcelona during last summer, he decided to basically refuse to play by pretending to have a back injury, but once the window closed, he decided to come back via a supposed recovery during the international break. And instead of sulking and playing poorly for the rest of the season, he probably had one of the best half seasons I've ever seen since maybe Suarez during the 2013-14 season, the first half of it. In the end, he was successful and Barcelona paid £143 million for him. Basically, they overpaid for him and he got his wish. The other method is what I would call the Alexis Sanchez method. Basically, in this way of conduct, you play terribly. I wouldn't say Sanchez played terribly this season, but for the first half, he was way worse than he usually is. You come in overweight, you don't put in all your effort, you have squabbles with the other players. You just make yourself a problem for the fans, for your teammates, for your manager, to the extent that the club feels obligated and even relieved to let you go. And like Coutinho, Sanchez eventually got his wish. Now, what did I suggest he does? I would probably suggest that he plays terribly next season, like throughout, just doesn't care, just, has a lackadaisical attitude, just, really just stops caring anymore. I think that would force Leicester to just let him go, because it might not be the most ideal way, but it might be the most effective way for him. Now, this has its own ramifications in the fact that it might not attract the bigger clubs around Europe, but it may still attract a team like Arsenal or Tottenham or even Liverpool, because there's an understanding that he's still a good player and he still has some value. It might have to just pan out in a sort of way like what happened with Alexis Sanchez and Manchester United, in which Alexis Sanchez wanting to leave Arsenal and being fed up of Arsenal's lack of ambition happened to coincide with Manchester United needing to get a new winger. Or even when Barcelona wanted to buy Coutinho originally in the summer, they were looking to replace the void that had been left by Neymar, and it just so happened to coincide with Coutinho wanting to leave. So I think that's the real problem that Mahrez faces, and the quote-unquote Sanchez method is probably his only way of fixing it. So basically, those are my thoughts on the situation. If you have any thoughts about it, make sure you leave a comment. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you like. If you didn't, make sure you dislike. And that's pretty much all for me, so peace.